Call the Apache Junction City Council meeting to order. The prayer will be led by Vice Mayor Wilson and the pledge by Councilmember Barker.
Heavenly Father, we are gathered together this wonderful evening to continually enjoying the flowers and temperatures. This is the time of the year when we all enjoy outdoor activities, excuse me, and understand that the heat wave is fast approaching. From the Palo Verde, ironwood, and saguaros in bloom, we enjoy the color of the spring in the desert. We also ask for your oversight and assistance for our wildfire firefighters that are actively involved with several fires throughout our great state. Keep them all safe as they attempt to contain these fires. Please be with us as we attend to city business, as we continue to keep our community a great place to live, work, and raise a family. Finally, we ask for your protective hands for our first responders as they continue to protect us and our belongings. We extend this to our military members and their families wherever they are serving throughout the world. Keep them all safe and return home to their loved ones. In the Lord's name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mayor Surtee,
Here.
Vice Mayor Wilson,
Excuse me, here.
Councilmember Barker,
Here.
Councilmember Evans,
Here.
Councilmember Rizzi,
Present.
Councilmember Struble,
Here.
Councilmember Waldron.
Here.
All members present. You have a quorum, Your Honor.
We have a motion on the consent agenda.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I move that the consent agenda be accepted as presented. Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Evans,
Yes.
Councilmember Barker,
Yes.
Councilmember Rizzi,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldron,
Yes.
Councilmember Struble,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Surtee.
Yes.
Unanimous, Your Honor.
I have a proclamation for Kids to Parks Day. Whereas May 19th, 2018 is the 8th Kids to Parks Day, organized and launched by the National Park Trust, held annually on the third Saturday of May. And whereas Kids to Park Day empowers kids and encourages families to get outdoors and visit America's parks. And whereas it is important to introduce a new generation to our nation's parks. And whereas we should encourage children to lead a more active lifestyle to combat the issues of child obesity, diabetes, mellitus, hypertension, and hypercholesterolemia. And whereas Kids to Park Day is open to all children and adults across the country to encourage a large and diverse group of participants. And whereas Kids to Parks Day will broaden children's appreciation for nature and outdoors. And now, therefore, I, Jeff Surtee, Mayor of the City of Apache Junction, do hereby proclaim to participate in Kids to Parks Day. I urge residents of Apache Junction to make time May 19th, 2018 to take the children in their lives to a neighborhood, state, or national park. And so here's a flyer on some of the things that we're going to be doing that day at the park. And we all know how terrible hypercholesterolemia can be, so.
I'm glad you had to say that word.
Yes.
Hey, Jack, Liz is here. Does she want that?
Yes, Liz, do you want to come? Announcements and current events. Chip?
Yes. I had an incident that occurred this past Sunday, and I want to show how our police department has responded. My wife and I were going down US 60 coming up towards the Idaho exit as we were heading west, and all of a sudden noticed a car coming up the ramp heading the wrong direction on getting onto US 60. And right behind her, we noticed a police car coming up and at a very fast rate, and ended up at the very end of the ramp where you're actually entering into exiting. He pulled in front of her to stop her. He put his life in danger by doing that. There was 3 of us that were going down the road, and of course this was about noontime on Sunday afternoon, and it was an experience seeing a wrong-way driver coming up and the ramp at a very, I would say, very quick rate. And I want to thank Officer David James, who was the one that responded and was actually able to stop her and prevent her from coming out onto the road and actually injuring and hurting some people.
Yes. Krista?
You guys have anything?
Oh, I guess most of us attended the senior interviews last Wednesday.
Oh, yeah.
Is that Wednesday? And what an amazing experience. We have the opportunity to do this every year and speak with the seniors at Apache Junction High School and see how incredible these young people are, and it just gives you great hope for the future. Yeah.
You're going to say?
I have more.
Huh?
I have more.
Okay, go ahead.
I have also attended the senior interviews. I think Councilmember Struble had gone to our local high school. And just to reiterate what Councilmember Barker had said, these kids, when they come and interview with people in the community, leaders in the community, teachers, business owners, they come in dressed for success. And it's really impressive to see how prepared these kids are to answer the questions and to really dig into. They call them a mock interview, but the way that it feels, the kids really feel like it's the real deal. So it's pretty awesome to be a part of those. April was just an incredibly busy month. I had attended a suicide prevention with Councilmember Wilson. We were invited to a movie showing, it's called The Ripple Effect, and I had attended with Apache Junction Drug Prevention Coalition. Very moving. If you have an opportunity to see the movie, it's was not quite what we had expected. It was more about how to help people in the after effect and how to help people get through. The movie was actually about a survivor, and so one of the things that they tell people is if you see somebody that's struggling or having a hard time or might be having some depression, ask them, are you okay? Do you need help? Reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out and just talk to that person, because a lot of times people are willing to open up. They just need somebody to talk to them first, to open that door first. I think we had all attended the Golden Rule banquet, which was pretty amazing. Apache Junction, that was, I believe, our first year that we've been a member. And to see what some of these people from all around the world actually are doing in their communities to make it a better place. We had some incredible entertainment. We had a not 17-year-old girl, I believe she was an 11-year-old girl from Florence that had been on American Idol. The girl had an angelic voice. It was absolutely amazing. She went through, I think, 17 rounds of the process. I don't know how she didn't win. Also, several of us had attended the Four Peaks DARE graduation, and that's something that's, the DARE program is something that has been very near and dear to me. As a community member, as a member of Apache Junction Drug Prevention Coalition, and to see these kids go through, it's not just about teaching our kids to say no. There's a lot of education about peer pressure, about internet, how to behave on the internet, what to do if you get into some trouble on the internet, and bullying. There's a lot of different aspects to the DARE program. And I personally would like to thank our city staff and our other council members for keeping that program in place for our children in the community when so many other communities have let that program go. I feel it's so vital for our kids, again, in the drug prevention and suicide prevention in our community. So I really appreciate that from our city and fellow council members. And then finally, I had also attended the Sunshine Acres grand opening, a new thrift store in our community. It just an awesome, it looks like they're gonna have a lot of great things there. Really, it was a lot of furniture, but a lot of quality items. But what really impressed me was what they do for children, for foster children. And it's just an amazing thing that they do, and hopefully we can support them in our community. And I'll just say this, something else that impressed me at that grand opening was they started it off with a prayer. And I just thought that was a really great way to start that off in the community. It just seems like we're so afraid of, being politically correct and what to say and what not to say. And I just thought it was amazing that they started it off with a community prayer. So, very busy month. That was it. Hope I didn't steal your thunder.
I was going to mention that, but yeah, it is a very worthwhile, if you want to help one of the thrift stores, it's very worthwhile. And you got to see the results of the kids for over the last 30 years. A lot of these kids are adults now, and they've got put all the way through Sunshine Acres. Otherwise, they would have had just a terrible upbringing. And a couple Saturdays ago, I had the privilege of attending the Legion of the Silver Rose at the American Legion 27. And I was unsure of what it was, but I got explained of why it has such a strange name. And what it is, it's honoring victims of Agent Orange from Vietnam. And it's local folks that get inducted into this, and unfortunately some of them are posthumous. But the reason it has that name is because for a long time nobody knew that this really existed. They thought people were faking, but it was real. And one of the first people, the first one ever given, there was no award for it. So somebody was in the hospital in very dire shape, and they went to the gift shop and they bought a Mylar silver rose and gave it to him. And he said that meant more to him than any award that he'd got. So, and Jeff, we're going to turn this over to you now.
Okay.
We have Imagine Prep here.
Yep, tonight we've got the student council from the Imagine Prep Panthers, if you guys would like to come up, or ladies and guys would like to come up. I gotta make sure I say that right. As they're walking up, we have, one of the big things that I don't know if they're gonna talk about that. Come on up here and stand and turn. You guys get to face the crowd. One of the big things that they did, if everybody remembers, back in February, I think it was, or early March, their boys basketball team took second in the state. It was really an exciting game to watch and something to be proud of. So tonight we have President Angela Esparza, Vice President Glenda Sabori, Treasurer Claire Schroeder, Secretary Anna Pineda, and then Aiden Porvel and Isaiah Velarde. And so they're going to tell us what accomplished, and I'm sorry if I messed up your names. You can come back and smack me later. But.
Madam President.
Thank you. So some of our accomplishments were that just last weekend we had a very successful prom, and we were able to do all that fundraising and stuff ourselves with a little bit of help from our PTA, and yeah, that's one of our accomplishments.
Another one of our accomplishments is we had a very successful prom spirit week that led up to prom and hyped it up a lot.
Another one would be our dances. We've hosted homecoming and a middle school dance this year and a winter formal and prom.
We've also had teacher appreciation lunch, I think at the beginning of the year, and we've had a lot of car washes to help raise money for all of our events.
We've also done a chocolate bar fundraiser. We go, go door to door, sell chocolate bars.
We also have a lot of seasonal events and sales. In February, we have Boo Grams, oh wait, in October we have boot grams, and in February we have like crush sales.
We also ran the student store year-round, which we just sold snacks after school and before school for our students at Imagine Prep.
We also assisted boosters, our PTA, PTO at Imagine in bingo night. We had one in January, and we just helped them sell some snacks. That's all. We haven't done that much more.
You guys don't want to say anything on this end? Okay. All right, so I guess we'll get a picture.
Come on, Dad. Thank you. Really appreciate all you guys do for us. So as they're walking back, this last weekend, I was able to attend the Friends of Apache Junction golf tournament out in Queen Valley, and that was an amazing time. I had four of my son and three, well, I hope they're not just my three friends, but three of my friends that golfed with us, and we had a really great time, great course, great event. They raised approximately somewhere between $6,000 and $6,200, and just praise to the AJ, or the Friends of AJ board for putting that on and doing all that. I also like to to reiterate what Council members Barker and Rizzi said about the interviewing the kids at the AJ High School. It's always an amazing time just to see kids talk about their future and just have this glow in their eyes as they talk about it, and it really gives us really a great sense that our future is going to be very well in hand by the young people. And then the last thing I've got is hopefully, probably, we were supposed to have I work with a bunch of kids out in Peralta Trail Elementary, and we were supposed to have a car wash this Saturday, but probably not going to happen just because of the stuff that's happening. But when that does happen, I'll let everybody know. They're raising, they decided they're putting it on. It's a bunch of 5th and 6th graders. They're doing all the planning, all the preparations, all the work. I get to just stand around, and hopefully they'll spray me when it's 110 degrees out. And, but they're doing all the work, and they're going to be raising money for one of their classmates that needs a surgery. So I'll let you all know when that finally does happen.
City Manager's report.
Thank you, Your Honor. Bryant Powell, City Manager. I have a few items to report. Next week is the free dump week at Apache Junction Landfill for City of Apache Junction residents, May 7th through 12th. And it's very popular and continues to be a popular way for our residents to be able to have those services. This Saturday, May 5th, is the last I Run series with Parks and Recreation. This one supports the Apache Junction football team, and it's at Flatiron Park. Encourage everyone to come and participate. In addition, the ongoing active transportation plan, we talked a little bit about that last night, effort continues with a bike event at Flatiron Park at 7:30 on Saturday as well. I understand there might even be a walk event, which would be great for me. I'd like to do that. And then Al Bravo just reported to me that the Apache Junction Lady Prospectors, who are in the state playoffs, had a home game this afternoon, and they're in the quarterfinals, and it took them 13 innings, but they did it, and they won 3-2, and so it kind of puts them into this double elimination bracket in the winners section, kind of headed towards the Final Four right now, and their next game is this Thursday at 4 o'clock at Rose Mofford Stadium. I think that's close to Grand Canyon University. It's in Phoenix somewhere. And that's my report tonight.
And we're looking for revenge against Alaska, right?
Yes.
Who knocked us out last
Absolutely,
year?
yeah.
This is high school.
Public hearing for proposed resolution number 18-14, establishment of a new single central business district which will replace the existing single central business district. Elan Ballender.
Honorable Mayor, members of City Council, my name is Alon Vallander, Economic Development Specialist for the city. Here tonight to present a few items. I have a quick question. Joel, can we handle these as one tonight in presentation format?
Yes, we may, but I think all the titles need to be announced first.
Okay.
So do that first?
Yep.
Okay, the second one we'll be doing is proposed resolution number 1812, establishing the Old West Highway Redevelopment Area. Resolution 1813, adoption of a new redevelopment area plan for the Old West Highway Redevelopment Area. And lastly, proposed resolution number 1815, rescinding the Crossroads redevelopment area and its associated redevelopment area plan. That is all of them.
Thank you, Mayor. So what we're looking at tonight is establishment of a single central business district and a new redevelopment area that will replace our Crossroads redevelopment area. To start off, I'd like to give just a real quick executive summary of what we are doing. In simplest terms, we're modifying and expanding our existing Crossroads redevelopment area to extend down Old West Highway corridor and then overlaying a single central business district over that same area. Reason that we're doing this, designating the area redevelopment area will help to reduce blight and spur development and adaptive reuse for vacant land and underutilized structures. Benefits that we've seen in the past in other redevelopment areas are as follows. We've seen sidewalk lighting, infrastructure improvements, facade improvement programs, and the Apache Trail corridors, and then also removal of blighted structures in partnership with private property owners. Many of these items were accomplished through use of CDBG grant funds. Additional benefits include access to economic development tools such as G-Plots. So what I do want to address and start with tonight is what we are not doing with these actions. First and foremost, adoption of this redevelopment area and its associated plan will not create any tax increases. It will not rezone, and it does not call for rezoning of any of the properties within these boundaries. It will not displace any residents from their homes, and it will not remove any public hearing requirements from any existing processes that we now follow.
So, Alon, this was in response. After we mentioned this last time, there were some residents who were very worried. You were able to meet with them and
yes,
let them know. And
yeah, I had a nice meeting with one of the residents within this area, and these were some of the concerns that she expressed. So, some background explanation of why we're bringing this forward today. It started with an examination by staff of our economic development toolbox, essentially the things that we're able to use to spur and incentivize development within the city of Apache Junction. One of the tools that is available to us that we have not yet used is in relation to single central business districts, specifically a GPLET, a government property lease excise tax. It's state of Arizona's alternative to TIF. TIF is a tool that's used by 49 out of 50 states in the nation. Arizona is the only one that doesn't allow its use. So alternative means some groups brought forward the opportunity for GPLET or GPLET, and this will allow us to utilize that if council so desires in the future. To be able to utilize that, the single central business district needs to lie entirely in a redevelopment area. In examining our geographic boundaries of both, we found that the single central business district extended outside the Crossroads redevelopment area. So we had a couple options to approach. One would be to expand Crossroads to match the single central business district boundaries, or reduce the single central business boundaries to match Crossroads, or lay out an entirely new redevelopment area. In looking at that, we found that it would probably be best, because our single central business district didn't meet the maximum or didn't utilize the maximum amount of geographic space that it could. So we wanted to expand that to be able to utilize that tool in areas that might benefit from its use. Crossroads Redevelopment Area was originally established in 1996 and has been reaffirmed several times over the course of its existence. 2013 was the last time it was reaffirmed. CDBG funds are tied to redevelopment areas to some, and HUD that oversees these funds requires that redevelopment areas be reaffirmed every 5 years. So 2018, we'd be up for reaffirmation on Crossroads. Again, when we looked at those boundaries, we determined that there were areas outside of Crossroads that could use some of the same improvements that happened within the Crossroads redevelopment area. And so we strategically looked at our corridors and our potential infill and realigned our boundaries to meet that. So facts about single central business districts. By state statute, they need to be single and continuous geographic area, and they need to lie entirely within a redevelopment area that's established pursuant to Title 36, Chapter 12, Article 3. Second, the single central business district can be no larger than 5% of the entire city square acres of the city, or a total of 640 acres. We went ahead and aligned it to 640 acres. Establishment of a single central business district would enable the city to utilize a government property lease excise tax as an incentive tool for development. So essentially, we're adding in a tool that we currently don't have at our disposal. Use of GPLUTs would have to happen through an economic development agreement. So in other words, it would be brought to council before it would be utilized or adopted. And from the point of approval on these ordinances today, we have to wait 1 year to be able to utilize it. Redevelopment area facts. Very simply, redevelopment area is an area that's designated by City Council to be in need of revitalization. The city currently has 2 redevelopment areas, Apache Trail and Crossroads. Certain criteria are required by the state to be able to designate an area a redevelopment area, and they are based on a predominance of the following factors. Defective or inadequate street layouts, faulty lot layouts in relation to size, accessibility, adequacy, or usefulness, unsanitary, or unsafe conditions, deterioration of site or other improvements, diversity of ownership, tax or special assessment delinquencies, defective or unusual conditions of title, improper or obsolete subdivision platting, and existence of conditions that endanger life or property by fire or other causes. So with that, the city needed to go out and actually do a study of the area and look at what factors and how this area meets these criteria. So Public Works provided findings on the roadways. 40% of the roadways within this redevelopment area are considered deteriorated. Streetlights, 86% in this area would be substandard. Sidewalks, 90% substandard, deteriorated, or missing. In other words, they have not yet been installed. Residential, evaluations on residential is based on potential repairs and dollar values of those repairs. Anything over $15,000 would fall into a category, as the state puts it, as a replace or repair category. And then if it's a mobile unit, age also comes into factor on that. So anything 15 years or older would also fall into that same category. Doesn't designate any of these structures themselves individually as being blighted or slum, but it simply says, based on these requirements, we can consider this as part of findings. Commercial, they look at faulty lot layouts, unsanitary or unsafe conditions, or deterioration of site improvements. So we went through this and found sufficiently that this area could fall within the state designation as a redevelopment area. I provided some copies so that you guys could see them a little bit better. These screens obviously don't put out the colors quite so well. The redevelopment area boundaries essentially go from Ironwood along Apache Trail all the way down to just east of Tomahawk and extend northward. So plan objectives is to incentivize economic development growth through removal of slum and blight, land assembly, quality housing, adequate public services, facilities, and infrastructure, as well as utilization of CDBG fund, JEPLET, or other redevelopment tools and resources that are not otherwise available without these designations. To be able to bring this forth, we had to do some public notices. 2 notices occurred, one on April 4th and one on April 11th in the Arizona Republic. And then also, city staff mailed out notices to all property owners within these boundaries on March 29th. I've had contact from 7 members of the community, and their primary questions, again, were focused on whether there'd be any zoning changes, any increases in taxes, displacement of residents through this. The simple answer to that, I'll go back to what I stated in the beginning. There are no increases in taxes attached to this. There are no rezoning or calls for rezoning of land within this area. There is no call for displacement of residents in this area, and it does not remove any requirements for public hearings on any processes. So requested actions today is to adopt the 4 resolutions that Mayor read. And essentially, those resolutions do 4 things. They adopt the new single central business boundaries. They declare the Old West Highway redevelopment area, again, pursuant to the conditions that are stated in Title 36, Chapter 12, Article 3. You adopt the Old West Highway redevelopment area plan and then rescind Crossroad and its associated plan. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm open to any questions that you may have.
Any questions or discussion? These are public hearings. Is there anyone who would like to speak on any of these items? Hearing and seeing none, I'll close the public hearings. Any more discussion? No. So I'm going to call for a motion on them one at a time. The first one will be item number 6.
Your Honor,
Yes?
I move that resolution number 18-14, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Apache Junction, Arizona, designating an area as the single central business district of the city of Apache Junction, Arizona, and rescinding resolution number 00-10 be approved.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Waldron,
Yes.
Councilmember Evans,
Yes.
Councilmember Struble,
Yes.
Councilmember Barker,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Councilmember Rizzi.
Yes.
Mayor Surtee,
Yes.
unanimous, Your Honor.
Do we have a motion on item number 7?
Your Honor,
Yes?
I move that resolution number 18-12, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Apache Junction, Arizona, setting forth findings in support of the existence of additional areas within the corporate limits of the city of Apache Junction that qualify for redevelopment pursuant to Arizona Revised Statute 36-1471 and establishing the Old West Highway redevelopment area be approved.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Struble,
Yes.
Councilmember Rizzi,
Yes.
Councilmember Evans,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldron,
Yes.
Councilmember Barker,
Yes.
Mayor Surtee,
Yes.
unanimous, Your Honor.
We have a motion on item number 8.
Your Honor,
Yes?
I move that resolution number 18-13, a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Apache Junction, Arizona, approving and adopting the Old West Highway redevelopment area plan for the Old West Highway redevelopment area be approved.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Barker,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldron,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Councilmember Evans,
Yes.
Councilmember Rizzi,
Yes.
Councilmember Struble,
Yes.
Mayor Surtee,
Yes.
unanimous, Your Honor.
And is there a motion on item number 9?
Your Honor,
Yes.
I move that resolution number 18-15, a resolution of the mayor and the city council of the city of Apache Junction, Arizona, rescinding resolution number 98-15 the establishment of the Crossroads Redevelopment Area, passed and adopted by the City Council on May 19, 1998, rescinding Resolution Number 06-23, the approval of the Downtown Implementation Plan for the Crossroads Redevelopment Area, passed and adopted by the City Council on June 6, 26, and rescinding Resolution Number 13-35, reaffirming the Crossroads Redevelopment Area and Plan, passed and adopted by the City Council on November 19th, 2013. Be approved.
Second.
And roll call.
Councilmember Rizzi,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Councilmember Barker,
Yes.
Councilmember Struble,
Yes.
Councilmember Evans,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldron,
Yes.
Mayor Surtee,
Yes.
unanimous, Your Honor.
Thank you, Alon.
Thank you.
Council direction to staff regarding residential collection of refuse and recycling. Larry.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. A couple weeks ago, I was here, I think 2 weeks ago, and presented the ASU reports from Project Cities about residential solid waste. So there was a memo that was emailed to you earlier today, and you have a copy on your desk. I'm just going to read word for word that memo. I'm just kidding. Just to give you the highlights, I think we all know that we have no mandatory collection now. We're likely the only metro city that doesn't require mandatory solid waste collection. Of these 3 studies, one was a class early on before we entered into Project Cities. They had a series of recommendations that I kind of just reiterated what that class found, what the recent studies showed. The second, Project Cities, actually had 2 classes, or one class from the Polytech, from the engineering school. They looked at the environmental impacts of solid waste, et cetera. The other one was a public administration class. They looked at the public policy aspects of how solid waste is handled. Those reports kind of indicated that there are consequences or impacts in related to wear and tear in our streets from having 5 different trucks go down the same street with 3 different haulers. There's vector issues, I think, with mosquitoes and vermin, rats, et cetera, if you don't have a solid waste system. Air quality. I don't know how many times you hear on the radio or you see the signs on the freeway about a no-burn day or, carpool, et cetera. So we had in the case reports 100 cases of open burning of trash. Again, looking at those 5 trucks driving up and down the streets, that's also an air quality issue. Previously, the council, solid waste is handled in Chapter 9, Volume 1, along with code compliance. So the council already gave direction to staff to look at updating the solid waste ordinance. As part of that, if the council does decide to go forward with a request for proposal and decides to go to mandatory solid waste collection, we'll probably have to make changes to that. So we feel we already have direction to staff on changing the solid waste ordinance if you decide to proceed with an RFP. So in the memo, it outlines really just some steps, looking again at staff, directing the city manager to get the appropriate staff together, briefly review those reports from ASU, there's been some recent RFPs around the valley. They've been in the paper, so I think look at how they went through their procurement process. I think that's some good valuable lessons for us. And then the various approaches. Some cities, you get 1 container, you have a choice of 1 container. Other communities decide, if you're just a single person, you can have a 30-gallon, or you can have a 60, or you can have a 90-gallon for your solid waste. I think exploring how we do bulky items, white goods like refrigerators and washers and dryers, how are those picked up? Electronics, yard waste. Those would all be explored, I think, over the next, what we're proposing, at least 8 or 9 months to do that, and then draft an RFP for consideration. So we also have a recommended motion in the memo. So I can answer any questions. Bryant, feel free to chime in.
I have a big one, but go ahead
Okay.
first.
with the motion that's here, and you mentioned the electronics and the white goods.
Mm-hmm.
Will this also include, like, for the motor oil and the tires, it's, where they're putting in the new turnabout? You can see there's a whole stack of tires that they unearthed. So would that be included in the verbiage for the current motion, or do we have to add
Well-
hazardous waste to encompass all of it?
Well, we have household hazardous waste. You can include that if you want to explore that as part of an RFP. We currently have a system, and now in the budget last night, there's going to be 2 of those events. So different cities, I think you kind of grow into it. Some cities actually, you call them up, you get on a list, they'll come to your house and they'll pick up your old cans of paint and your Drano. Other cities decide that on a Saturday, you can come in and haul it. What we do now for tires is it's the mosquito thing. So we write it up as storage of tires. A lot of stores will just, I don't know what the fee is, when you get your tires changed, you pay a service fee. Somehow these tires accumulate. You can take them to the drop-off day when we do that. That is one day. It's kind of like an amnesty day. So it's up to you if you want to include
It would be fine to
exploring
include it, and then we'll
household
just make
hazardous
that part of the
waste.
process.
It's all part of the same waste stream.
It's all
So
part of it.
Yeah, okay.
we didn't include it here because we kind of already do, or now expand it to two days, but you can,
Well,
certainly.
because if it becomes an RFP, we don't really know if who's going to bid on it might want to pick up some of that as well, or not. And so I think it would
Absolutely.
be
And-
more inclusive.
Yep.
And you can put it as bid options.
Yep.
For example, you can have a bid and say, we're going to do this, and a lot of cities, what I call, it's like going to a restaurant, it's à la carte. So you can order the special, or you can order the à la carte menu. What cities do is say, okay, here's what we're going to do, this is what you bid on, and then give us alternative bids for A, B, C, and D for alternative bids, and they might include, alley pickup once a month or quarterly, however you can come back and complete the bidding process and put that in the RFP.
So if this plays out to the full extent, the city will be telling some private companies that they cannot do business in the city?
That is a possible outcome.
And
So for example, Florence, Chandler, Queen Creek, almost every valley city has one trash company where residents do their residential trash pickup.
The free market comes into place when they bid on the RFP. So are you excluding some over others, but it's whoever puts the best qualified bid together, that's where the private marketplace comes in terms of the free market enterprise system.
And Joel, how does this compare to the tow contracts where we have more than one company and that gets very competitive and very, there have been some,
Heated.
yes. And would we be opening ourselves up for lawsuits?
That's a compound question. That could take a while to explain, but basically, it's the tow contract, excuse me, was for towing vehicles that the PD requested for tows, and that was the scope. That was the only scope of it. So it's kind of limited. Tow companies can still tow private individuals' cars, and the individual would have to call them up and do it. So it's a little different. This is a little different because any vendor can essentially respond to the RFP, and the city manager and his staff would then look at the results and decide whether it's a responsive and responsible bid. That's how it would work. That's how it is done in other cities. Some cities actually have a trash department, and they have their own trucks and their own employees. They also do that. Some cities divide up the city in different sectors for the trash service, so that each service provider would have their own area. So you don't see 3 to 4 companies on the streets every Monday and Thursday.
So,
I'm
right
sorry.
now, we have fairly low rates because as each additional company came in, that brought the rates down. So if we award this to one company, are they gonna be locked in, or are they gonna immediately be begging us, hey, we need to go up to get it up to where we're not
It-
competitive anymore?
Well, if I,
Well, we
Well,
would
Brian,
love,
if I
that's,
can.
okay.
and then, please jump in, but I think the market would dictate what you want to put in your RFP. And then at one point, just like you have other contractors, like the janitorial contract, it goes up a certain amount per year or per every 3 years. So it depends on what you want to put in your RFP. I'm sorry, Brian.
Yeah, I think that's part of the scope that we would want to develop. It's going to take some time, but you would want to look at best practices. Might be 5 years, that sweet spot when you need to go out and rebid again. Could be 8 years. We would look at all the valley cities and maybe even national cities that look at different time frame. You could even do geographic areas. Now that I think about it, you could set that up. I think what's essentially important for us in our community, because we have a landfill within our community, is that you're going to want to have assurance that the residential solid waste that is so close to your resident and to your landfill go to there. There's lots of different reasons for that. But that may be some other questions you may have. But
Yeah, that was my question in the aspect, if we awarded a contract to someone else that hauls their, I'll say, refuge off to their own facilities, and how would that impact the landfill, where we right now have 2035 as a closure date for our landfill, and with the decreased volume that they would be getting, would that impact that? Would we be
2035.
problem involved in, I'll say, in now suddenly extending that because they don't have the volume? Or is it going to basically, in a sense, open up where now we're going to have, I'll say, trash haulers from other areas now suddenly coming into our community to go into our landfill to fill up, still meet that 2035 date for closure?
If I may, I'll say something. I think what you can do is dictate in your RFP where they have to take the trash. You can do that, and if they say, oh, no, we're going to take it to Phoenix, well, then that's not responsive, and so they are not a responsive or responsible bidder.
I think one of the problems we have is 2 of the firms now take the trash out of the city.
Right.
And based on our code compliance, people aren't taking it anywhere. They're burning it. It's not going in any landfill. It becomes a code case. So eventually it goes somewhere, but right now we know that 2 of the 3 firms take it outside the city. So if what I think is part of this process, what the city attorney's saying is, if you could have 100% of it go to the landfill, then couldn't the landfill close early? Then that's a necessarily good thing for the city, but at some point down the road, the landfill closes early, and then the solid waste goes somewhere else, and then the cost probably will go up. But I think that's an inevitability anyway. But right now, there's an agreement, a contract that says it closes in 2035.
Whether or
So
not
if
it's
not
full.
one more pound goes in that landfill or ton, it still closes in 2035.
And we're looking at 7 or 8 month process before we see this again, or it'll all be
Well,
done?
that's what we're talking, I think there's still a lot of, even though we have the studies that we have, I think there's still a lot to be learned from what other communities are doing, come back with options. Maybe in the end, you decide, no, we're just gonna keep business as usual. Maybe you mandate everybody have it, but you still keep 3 firms.
Will
but-
part of the
but-
process be reaching out to the 4 firms? Because I believe there is a 4th one now.
They would all have to bid
But I
on,
mean, just for input and ideas and logistics, do we think that you would be reaching out to them?
I think you have to be careful when you do that, to have folks that are helping, that might bid on it, help draft the RFP. I think that's problematic. But I think overall, the best input I think we can get is from experience from what other communities have done that have already gone through this. And again, it's always, you bring up the towing contract, I think there's a community not too far from here that this can be, have some of that same, I don't know, it's the same kind of philosophy of if you didn't win, then do you sue the community because you thought your bid was better or more responsive? Again, it happens with any bidding process. So I think once we draft it, bring it back, and then you folks can decide, do you like it, do you don't like it? Again, then do you want to set up a committee to review it, all that stuff. But I think this is almost standard practice now. The other thing that I mentioned was MAGs. MAG has just completed a study on best practices. I think the old one was 10 years old. So they've gone out to every city in the MAG region and said, here's how solid waste, here are the best practices of how to handle solid waste. And I think we should take advantage of our membership in MAG and use those best practices as we think how we were going to go forward as a community.
So that would include sister-type cities that went through this process?
Yeah, from the previous ASU study, and whether they're comparable or not, but they looked at Fountain Hills, they looked at Queen Creek, they looked at Buckeye. Paradise Valley has just gone through it. One of the students said, well, in theory, you could piggyback on Queen Creek's contract. We do that for computer purchases, perhaps. I don't know, maybe you want to think, I don't know if Mesa could be competitive, but do you allow another public agency to
I think Mesa
say,
is one of the ones that has municipal trash.
but they might be a vendor. I mean, that's what you have to think about. Is it just the private sector? What if Mesa came in and had lower and a qualified proposal than the three? Everybody sharpens their pencil, I guess, is really the way it works.
You already have other we have City of Mesa already trucks. You may see them going into the landfill. We do not control, just for purposes of clarification to the public, the infill rate of what goes in the landfill is a completely private market. And I think this process also may even involve like a pre-scoping before we even get into pulling together and deciding how to pull it together, Larry. We may want to, we have a major change going on with one of the waste haulers in the city. One of them's just been bought up. So we're gonna need to kind of establish that relationship, make sure they know what's going on. And we have waste management, we have Republic. So we'll want to at least make them aware, keep them aware of what's going on. We'll want to get input as we go from our residents. It's a major change.
Any more questions?
Yeah, I got a question. I don't remember from all that paper that they gave us to read and everything, but if we make this, when we make this mandatory upon our citizens to do the hauling and collection, will that increase our code compliance or reduce our code compliance? Do you have any feel for that?
Well, in theory, over time, it would go down. But there might be, in terms, I think education is the big component. Right now, if you live on the other side of Mountain View, you have to have somebody take your trash. The county, it's mandatory on the east side of Mountain View that you have to have somebody come and get it. So inside the city and in these county islands that we have, that's another thing we were talking about is, maybe there's a way for the county islands to become part of this contract that we haven't even been thinking about. But I think education is going to be key, and there will continue to be code enforcement, but my hope is that the open burning certainly would go down, and most of this stuff would be starting to move its way out of the backyards and into these bins. We probably would keep, Bryant just announced the free dump week. Maybe you keep that over the period of the contract or during the life of we currently have it of the life of the contract with Republic. That's another way. The Community Development Corporation was talking about maybe an amnesty. Maybe we as a city go out and have put 40-yard dumpsters throughout the city a couple times for the first couple years and get people to fill up those dumpsters and kind of knowing that, yes, I'm sorry, you have to have mandatory trash pickup, but here's an incentive, there's going to be a dumpster at the end of your street for a week, go fill it up. So those are all things that I think can ease the citizens into a mandatory system.
Yeah, and then this is kind of I know there's a lot of older residents in our town that wouldn't fill up a container as quickly as a family. Would they be able to share containers amongst, 2 neighbors or 3 neighbors so that they could save costs because of the limited income they might have and such, or is there?
Again, you can explore that. Typically, what I said earlier is they just end up with a container that's very small. It's still automated, but it only holds 1 or 2 bags as opposed to one that holds 6 bags. So they pay, it's almost like a pay-as-you-throw, where they pay less because they generate less.
So they have
What happens now is most of when you have single-stream recycling, the recycling bin usually has more stuff in it than the trash bin, if we're doing it correctly and we're educating the public. So maybe everybody ends up, instead of a 96-gallon toter, maybe everybody ends up with a 60-gallon or a 30-gallon toter. So those are all, and again, I think I mentioned in the memo here that we have seasonal residents. Are there people, we have folks that shut off their water during the summer now. So do you create a system, they keep the toter, but they only pay for the time that they're here. So again, I think there's still a lot of work to do. What size property becomes a commercial? Is it a duplex or under? Is it fourplex or under? Again, we're not going to really go after, or have this really deal with commercial businesses. They're still going to do what they're going to do. A lot of the RV parks, they probably are going to be treated like a commercial contract. We're not even, they already kind of handle their own solid waste. So we're really talking about residential.
What is this word toter? Is that something from Wisconsin? 'Cause
It
we-
probably could be.
we
It's
don't
like a
say that.
bubbler or some other, but that's the thing that's at your curb. We just call them toters. You wheel it out, and it's a garbage, it's a bin.
I know.
And they come in 3
Never
sizes.
called
They
that.
come in 3 sizes.
It's a garbage.
And a lot of them have RFID chip, so when it goes in the truck, it reads it, and so what we found out where I used to work, the trash didn't come today. Well, they knew that it never made it to the curb because it never went in the truck, because it has a scanner, barcode scanner, and they know that, yes, the truck came and it picked it up at 6:30 a.m. So I think you end up reducing complaints about missed pickups and things like that.
Krista?
I just have a couple comments. I struggle a little bit with the mandate part, and I think we're going to have some community members that may. But the problem that we're facing is we've seen in the last couple of years some horrific situations where people weren't mandated to have the trash pickup, and it was just piling up in the backyard. You've got vermin, you've got diseases, you've got all, and I think that's probably what's causing us to get to this point. The other thing to consider, one of the other problems that I have with it is that I hate to take away the competition, because then you get into the pricing issue. I think Jeff had alluded to that, and you don't want to, you have one company and they just continue to raise the prices, and so that's just a concern. But I think we're getting to the point where we have to look at this, and we do have to, there's, like you said, we're probably one of the only ones in the East Valley that doesn't have the mandate, and we're getting into situations where we have to do something. Not pleasant, but change is coming, and we have to do something about it.
I have a question.
Robin?
Can't prices be addressed in the RFP? Yes, and increases no more than X percent in the RFP, so we could control those prices.
Yes.
In theory, they shouldn't be more than they are today. They actually ought to come down, because one company has
Is
the
doing the
bigger
whole thing,
contract,
right.
so they would have more doors to stop at.
Yeah, I have a little bit of input that I would like looked into. I live in between Winchester and Royal Palm. Of course, you've got all the apartment complexes that are on Winchester, and they have multiple dumpsters out there that don't get taken back in. So I would like to see that addressed, that the day they get picked up, they have to be picked up, because right now they stay out there for days. And
Yeah, that's
it's-
currently in the code, actually. We could
But-
start.
but-
Well, again, we have
but
these county
it would
islands. There's a
work.
gentleman that calls me on Southern. He said, hey, along Southern, they're not picking them up. And Yao and I wrote letters to all those people, and it got better. And then the county sent letters to the county island
But this
people.
would be more teeth in it, though.
Yes.
Rather than a letter. I mean, letters don't
Right.
really scare anybody. But,
Right.
hey, you've got the contract. You make sure that your customers pick them up. I mean, that's what I'm asking for.
Right, they have to be, you can only put them out so many hours before, and you have to bring it in so many hours after it's picked up. That's kind of what the current code says. But again, that's one of, you talk about what we're trying to enforce, the big picture, we're going after those big properties where there's lots of criminal activity or 5 RVs on a property, it ends up being a low priority. But again, I think it's part of the education process. But yeah, I agree.
And that, so what I'm asking, is this an opportunity to put some teeth in it, to
Sure.
enforce it, rather than
Yes,
send
sir.
a letter a week later?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. Has anyone come up with a motion here? It's kind of vague.
It's kind of, yeah, just the one that's on the back here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Add
Honor.
your hazardous waste if you want to at the last line.
Yes. Okay,
I don't have that.
That's this.
are you ready for?
Oh, there it is. Okay,
Okay.
ready for a motion?
Your Honor, I move that the following direction be given to staff regarding drafting an RFP for residential solid waste, recycling services, and hazardous waste, and the city manager, along with appropriate city staff, conduct further research of other metro region municipalities, along with MAG's recent best practices for solid waste management report, and draft an RFP for a coordinated residential solid waste and recycling program for further consideration by the mayor and city council at a future meeting.
Second.
You
didn't add
Do you
the
want to,
hazardous
do you want to amend
waste.
your motion and put hazardous waste in
She
there?
did.
I
She
did.
said it.
Oh, she did?
Yeah.
Okay,
I
I
did
missed
up
that.
here, yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call?
Vice Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Councilmember Struble,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldron,
Yes.
Councilmember Rizzi,
Yes.
Councilmember Barker,
Yes,
Councilmember Evans,
Yes.
Mayor Surtee,
Yes.
unanimous, Your Honor.
Do we have a motion on upcoming council dates?
Your Honor,
Yes.
I move that an executive session at 6 PM and a work session at 7 PM be held on Monday, May 14th, 2018, in the City Council Conference Room and the City Council Chambers respectively, and that an executive session at 6 PM be held on Tuesday, May 15th, 2018, in the City Council Conference Room.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilmember Evans,
Yes.
Councilmember Barker,
Yes.
Councilmember Rizzi,
Yes.
Councilmember Waldron,
Yes.
Councilmember Struble,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Surtee,
Yes.
unanimous, Your Honor.
And it seems like we have no requests for call to the public, so with that, we will adjourn the meeting.